Oh, what a goal! McWilliams, he's done it! He's done it! The Michigan goal in the first period for McWilliams. Run, Pelkey scores! Pelkey! It's it!
And welcome back to the podcast. My name's always Derik Clark. If you hear a little bit of noise in the background, the Eagles game is currently on my television. Texans win, baby, this weekend. This week in the world of sports has been crazy. A lot of motorsports news, believe it or not. This one's like a little bit of a shorter one, don't get me wrong. But got some football news, got some hockey news, got a lot of motorsports news. Hockey-wise, a little interesting. We'll start there. The lowest viewed Winter Classic in the history of the NHL. It averaged 902,000 viewers. That's bad. It peaked at 1.3 million. Now, one thing I will argue is that it was on TNT. It was also two teams that nobody gives a shit about. I will say the Winter Classic this year was bad, but next year might be good. The two outdoor games that the NHL has, which is the Winter Classic and then the Stadium Series, next year will both be in the good old state of Florida. The Panthers will host the Winter Classic, and the Lightning will host the Stadium Series, all of which are in Florida. And should be an interesting one there. I think it'll be interesting because you look at the Panthers, they're going to be playing in Miami. They're going to play where the Miami Marlins play. And then you look at Tampa, it's a little different because you could close the stadium in Miami. In Tampa, that's not the case. They're going to play where the Buccaneers play. That's where their Stadium Series game is going to be. That's a little interesting. The Winter Classic is January 2nd. The Stadium Series is February 1st? Yes, 1st. So, a little interesting there. Instead of having it New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, it'll be the first Winter Classic to be the day after New Year's Day. So, a little interesting there. Another back-to-back years of off Winter Classics. Usually the Winter Classic's on New Year's Day. Of course, this year, this installment was New Year's Eve. So there was two in 2024 technically, but the 2026 Winter Classic will be still happening. It's just a little different and a little more interesting. That will be the end of hockey basically on this whole entire podcast, because that's basically it in the world of hockey. Although there is another thing, Arizona Coyotes might be coming back. There's an investment group that the state of Arizona has made. I've heard Phoenix, Arizona is where they want to return to because you have the Phoenix Suns. Interesting there. You also have the Diamondbacks, I believe, that play in Phoenix. So it's a little interesting to see what comes out of that. Do I think they'll come back to Arizona? Yes. Is it a little interesting that they could be coming back sooner than what I thought? Yes. Do I hope it's a good ownership group? Yes, because they've had multiple bad owners, and if they have another bad ownership group after bad ownership group, you should just leave Arizona completely. If worse comes to worse, I don't know. And they would revive as the Arizona Coyotes as well, because that whole name is frozen. That's why they're Utah HC, and they didn't carry the Coyote name over. It was a whole thing over in good old state of Utah and in the good old state of Arizona. That's all crazy over there in the world of hockey. Okay, football news. Let's start it. The Texans get the win, 32-12 over the Chargers. The AFC side of the divisionals has been already filtered through. The Bills will be taking on the Ravens in Buffalo, while we'll have to deal with the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City in Arrowhead. Going to be a big one. We've never in franchise history made it out of the divisional. Do I think we can? You want my honesty? No. Do you want my dynamic game talk through that could possibly happen? Sure, I'll give it to you. Here's the gist. I don't know. But here's what I think. If we play like we did against the Chargers, there's a good chance we win. You got to understand that it's the Chiefs, and I will 1,000% tell you officiating is where it's going to get you screwed over, and you just got to play the right game. The Bills beat them because they played the right game. And if you play the right game, you might just beat the Chiefs. Do I think we beat the Chiefs? Realistically, hell no. But I'm a fan of the Texans because anything can happen with this team. And if beating the Chiefs is one of them, we've beaten the Chiefs before, I think we can beat the Chiefs. I really think we can if we play our cards right. But the most likely thing is it won't happen, right? But it's football. You got to keep going. So I give all props to my Texans, and I really hope we do get the win in Arrowhead this coming weekend. Okay, motorsports news. This is where we're going to get depth in this podcast. We're going to start with the NASCAR news, and then we will progress to the supercross news because there's two motorsports going on right now when it comes to news. Supercross is racing. NASCAR is getting ready to race the Daytona 500 in a little over a month. Okay, ahead of the Daytona 500, there's been 3 rule changes that have occurred in the sport of NASCAR, and they are as followed. We will start with the more non-really determining on the race in the field, then we'll go on to the racing. So, the first one that was issued is sponsor, which is an interesting one here. They updated the map where where teams could put sponsors on their race car. There is rules. Obviously, for the last 3 years now, the numbers haven't been in the middle of the race car. They've been on the front part of the door in the race car. A little interesting. I know some people don't like it, but that's a nod to the original NASCAR and blah, blah, blah. Sponsors have changed. The area of the sponsors has changed. There's been one addition to the space you are allowed to put sponsors on. Very interesting. It's the safety net. That's the net that the driver takes off to get in the car and then put the net back on. The net, the safety net for the driver's side window can now have sponsors put on it. I'm assuming you have to sew those sponsors on it, and most likely it'll probably be Sunoco who takes that spot because I just really feel like it would be Sunoco. But it also just made me think, imagine the teams that you look at. Daniel Suarez, for example, he has the Tootsie sponsor, not Tootsie Roll, but Tootsie is in I forget. I forget what Tootsie does, but Tootsie is a purplish brand. They could do a purple safety net, driver's window net, which could be interesting. You also have Interstate Battery, could do like a green one, a lime green. Like there's options here. It's a little interesting. Just thought that's a little interesting. The 2 major rules that did happen, though. First one is actually kind of interesting. It's the points area. It was a little interesting to read. If a driver that's not full-time, so a part-time racer, because part-time racers don't qualify for postseason, they finally made this a rule, which is actually amazing. If a part-time racer wins, it's wherever the first full-time driver is and down. So, let's say, okay, I know Helio Castroneves is running the Daytona 500. Let's say he wins it. He wins the Daytona 500. He doesn't get anything. The points don't get erased because prior to this rule, the first place points got erased and it was second place and beyond. If it was full-time racers, that would get the 9 points and then the 8 points and then the 7 points. The rule has changed. Second place would get the first place points and they would get 10 points. And I think that works if a full-time racer gets second and a part-time racer gets third, fourth would get third place points, and so on and so forth. This rule is actually very important, and I like it. But there is one exception. If the full-time racer wins, if a part-time racer wins and a full-time driver gets second, the second place driver gets 10 points, but they do not get the 1 playoff point that comes with winning the race. They only get the 10 stage points. A little interesting there. A little interesting. Okay, the last rule that they issued is actually kind of crazy, and I still don't know how I'm going to think about this one, because this one's actually a little more crazy. Okay, there's a reason why I brought up Helio Castroneves. They made a new rule that if you notify NASCAR 90 days in advance, if you are a full-time team and you are running a part-time driver, if you notify NASCAR 90 days ahead of the event, they will give that part-time racer an automatic spot into the race. Why is this important? because we are literally going to see it in the Daytona 500. Here's what I mean. The Daytona 500 is usually 40 cars. This year, it will be 41. Helio Castroneves has been given an automatic spot on the starting grid. Okay? Because Trackhouse Racing, who he is running this one-time race for, notified NASCAR 90 days in advance. So, Helio Castroneves is the first driver we will see get this rule placed. Instead of 40 cars, there will be 41. Now, does that mean that Helio Castroneves starts 41st? That I'm unsure of. I read the rule, and that's where it's a little interesting. I'm assuming he's still allowed to try to qualify for better positions. So I digress. But I could be wrong, and he might have to start 41st. Because they are guaranteeing him a spot. I don't know how this rule exactly works. I didn't read it fully, but I digress. And that's really it. That's all I have to say. This is literally the podcast. Because that's basically all that's happened in the world of sports. Granted, we've seen some crazy stuff. My Ducks are on a 6-game roadie right now. They're on a 2-game losing streak. They've lost 2 of the 6 games on the East Coast roadie. They are still up 1-0 against the Hurricanes as I'm talking right now. Hope I did not jinx that, but you get what I'm saying. But that will do it for me here in the good old upstate New York, middle of nowhere. As always, guys, stay safe. God bless you. So there's it, guys. Peace.